Speaking of that, the upcoming election in Britain, do you think the Conservative Party will be wiped out?
I know a lot of people who think so, and I know an awful lot of people who would like it to happen, actually, which would be quite a unique thing. I don't think so. I think there
Yeah.
will continue to be enough people who self identify as conservatives and who have done so for a very, very long time to enable it to survive. But it is living very dangerously. It is very fortunate indeed that it is up against a Labour Party, which, in my opinion, is poorly led
Yeah.
and unpopular.
Mhm.
Had there been a really strong, charismatic, popular leader of the Labour Party with an attractive programme, then a wipeout might have been a very real possibility.
Okay. Are there any report about this MI6 spy couple that has been caught in China? So China recently, but that's a big topic in China as well. That there is the government announced that they arrested a couple that has been working for the MI6. Is there any report about that?
Very, very little indeed. I
Okay.
am sure that the word has gone out from Whitehall to all the editorial offices, which are do not cover this story.
Okay.
And I think that that, by the way, is a strong indication. I'm not saying it's proof, and I want to be very careful, but I think there's a strong indication that the Chinese might have good, reasonable grounds to conduct the arrest that they have.
Okay. One more thing before I let you go. Epoch Times. Remember you told me that they approached it at some point, right?
Yeah.
They now they are being accused that their CFO, I think, are being accused of money laundering. Okay, and the pretty big scandal going on there.
Mm.
To be honest, I'm not surprised. It seems like now we can make assumptions now. Whoever is working with the U.S., whether it's the country like Ukraine or Zelensky, or organizations like Epoch Times, they are just corrupted. We can make that
Yes,
assumption,
yes.
right?
I mean, I'm going to say this straight. I think Epoch Times, I wouldn't have, I mean, I didn't want to have anything to do with them right from the beginning. Nothing about this scandal surprises me at all. But on the larger point about the United States fostering corruption or associating with people who are corrupt and encouraging corruption, that is absolutely correct. I can remember this from the Greece of my childhood. I mean, Greece is a small country in the 50s, 60s. The Americans then came in. They had an awful lot of money
Mm-hmm.
and they basically bought the country at that time and bought it in a very, very cynical way. And they created a culture of corruption in Greece, which has never gone. I mean, we still have it. We still struggle with it to this day. A sort of sense that anything, everything and anything was for sale. And the Americans do this. They do this wherever they go. They did it in Russia in the 90s. They did it in Vietnam in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
They do it in all kinds of other places as well. Um, it, and of course, it's coming back increasingly into the United States too, because all of this money that is moving around, Ukraine, of course, today, all of this money that's moving around eventually ends up back home, or a lot of it does, and it causes corruption of its own kind.
The Chiang Kai-shek is another example. Even
Yeah, absolutely.
Truman even said that these are corrupted couple, right? He's talking
Yeah,
about that.
yeah,
And my
yeah,
grandfather used to be a pretty high level of official in the under Chiang Kai-shek. The
yeah,
whole reason he didn't go to Taiwan to follow, he stayed in the mainland, is because corruption. It was so
yeah,
bad that he
yeah.
saw it left and right, and he totally gave up on the woman down. Yeah, KMT.
Absolutely. Well, my mother had friends in the Chinese embassy, which was the Guomindang embassy in London. These are Chinese women of
Mm-hmm.
that time, and of course they all spoke English, and they referred to him as Cash My Check. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that's remarkable because if you really want things done, you want some good people. Corrupted
Yeah.
people, they're weak, right? That they're not very easy can achieve whatever you want them to achieve. But that's how they control them, I guess.
Well, that's exactly how they control them. I mean, as I said, I was in my childhood. Greece was a completely corrupt country. It still is to a great extent, not as
Mhm.
much, not as bad as it was then. One of the things you discover is when corruption starts, it takes over everything eventually, unless it's brought under control. And you're absolutely right. Everybody can be manipulated and controlled in that way. And if you're not corrupt yourself and you do not want to be corrupt, the entire system becomes hostile to you. They won't respect you because then you're not corrupt. They will see you as a threat and they will try and push you out. It's one of the reasons why, in the end, I chose to stay in Britain rather than return to Greece, because I was offered jobs in Greece back in the 80s, but it was made very clear to me that I would have to accept some of the money under the table, literally, in envelopes. And I absolutely didn't want to do that. I didn't want to live that way.
I think that's part of the thing. Why they hate Donald Trump. You see, it's run like a mafia in so many ways. And mafia also requires you to be like them. You need to
Yeah,
be 100% loyal. They don't accept a 90% loyalty. They don't
yeah,
accept a 95%. You have to be 100%. It's very much mafia-like. And then they like the fact that if you really want to gain the trust from the mafia boss, you need to have committed something heinous. You have robbed the
yeah.
bank, you have killed people. That's when they trust you, right? If you are a clean person, they don't trust you. I think with Donald Trump, is even though he did a lot of awful things, but he's still not 100% awful. Because for example, because let's just say one example, the Epstein Island. So there are all kinds of awful things, on the list. The one thing they mentioned about Donald Trump that so far we know is that one time Epstein was on his way to Atlantic City and he called Donald Trump saying, I want to go gambling. I have some girls here. And Trump said, no, they're underage. That's illegal. You cannot do that. You see, he has some principles. I
Yes,
think that's the reason they hate him because he's
I
not
think
100% bad.
I think you're absolutely right. Now I'm going to say something, which is one of the things where I got Trump completely wrong. I said a billionaire in
Mhm.
the construction industry. Of course, he must be corrupt. That was my operative assumption about Trump when he first appeared. And I've come to the conclusion that he must be the only billionaire in the construction industry who isn't. Because had he been actually corrupt, really corrupt, they would have come up with something, not the
Yeah,
fact that he did something to
sexually
his
harassed.
business
Yeah.
records,
Mhm.
to conceal what they call hush money. In other words, a
Mhm.
non-disclosure agreement with Stormy Daniels. I mean, they'd
Yeah.
have come up with something real.
Mhm.
Instead, they're coming up with these idiotic things like the fact that he, overvalued some of his properties and got more of a loan, which the banks knew all about and were perfectly happy with. I mean, and you remember all the stories about his tax, that there was all
Yeah.
sorts of
Yeah.
things going wrong with his taxes, and of course that turned out to be nonsense as well.
Mhm.
So I mean, he is not personally corrupt. He may be strange and bizarre and flamboyant and vulgar and crude. He might not be the sort of person you want for dinner. He might behave towards women in ways that
Yeah.
we don't like,
Mhm. Yeah.
but he is not financially corrupt. I have to say that has to be the conclusion.
Yeah, he has a limit. He has, extramarital affairs, but not with underage. You see,
Yeah,
he has his red line, right?
yes,
But for mafia organization, they don't want you to have
no,
any line, right? They want you to be
exactly.
100% corrupt and bad and
That's
evil. Yeah.
that is absolutely correct. That is
Yeah.
completely true. I mean, I
Mhm.
should say again, when I was at the Royal Courts of Justice, I never did criminal law, but I had to meet all kinds of people who did. I had to meet the lawyers. In fact, one of my best friends was a very, very good criminal lawyer. And I've heard a lot about criminals from her, gangsters and all kinds of people like that. And I had to sometimes meet criminals in the cells in the Royal Courts of Justice because they'd be hauled in and they'd be facing, action, legal action, and I'd have to work out legal representation for them and all of that kind of thing. But you're absolutely correct. The thing to understand about them is that they fundamentally do not have ethical, moral limits. I once read somewhere, and I can't remember where it was, that it's the difference between people like that and everyone else is that those people have no moral center.
Yeah. And they cannot stand other people
No.
within their organization who has morals.
Well, correct. It's impossible. You cannot function in it. By the way, that friend of mine who was a criminal lawyer, she eventually decided that one of the reasons she would stop practicing as a criminal lawyer is because in the end she found it very difficult to do. I mean, there were lots of things about it that she enjoyed, but in the end, associating with people like that was in itself corrupting, even though she was never actually corrupt, because their cynicism was just too much.
Yeah, so Donald Trump's problem is he's not evil enough.
He's not evil enough, exactly. I mean, he's not particularly well educated. He's very uninformed about the world. He's very easily manipulated.
Yeah.
He does all kinds of reckless things. He's not the right person to be president of the United States. I mean, he doesn't have the competence of a Roosevelt or a Lincoln, not remotely, or a Kennedy even.
Yeah.
But he's not evil in the way that some of the other people are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, with that, I took you another almost 2 hours of your time. I appreciate that very much.
One of our best programs. I loved it. Just to say.
Thank you so
I thought it was
much.
a really good program today.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
great. See you next
Bye.
week. Bye.
Bye.